idea of a peaceful Ukraine, where millions of Ukrainian families can go back to, it still looks very far away. So my question to you is, when will this be a reality, do you think?
Вітаю, дорогі друзі. Дуже дякую за запрошення на
Thank you very much for
сьогоднішню
inviting
прекрасну
me to
зустріч.
this conference.
Але розпочати я хочу з того, що вчора ми з нашими друзями слухали португальську музику фаду.
But I would like to start with a very personal story.
Ввечері.
Yesterday, with our friends, we had a chance to listen to fado singers, Portuguese music.
І дівчина, яка співала ці пісні фаду, у неї на двох руках, це португальська дівчина, у неї на двох руках були стрічки з українським прапором.
And all of a sudden we noticed that one of the singers, a Portuguese girl, wore stripes with the Ukrainian flag on both her hands.
І коли я її запитала, ви підтримуєте Україну, у неї на очах з'явилися сльози. Вона сказала, з першого дня війни я з цими стрічками, і я буду стояти з Україною до перемоги.
And when I asked you why you're wearing this, she said, I'm wearing this since the first day of war. I am with you and I will wear them till the very end of this war, till your victory.
І я хочу сказати, що в цьому наша сила і наш шлях до перемоги, в нашій з вами єдності, в вашій підтримці.
And I consider this case, or this story that I told you, as a symbol of the importance of the unity, that we are not alone, and as the unity will persist, will stay, I'm sure we will overcome and will win.
І я хочу в цю хвилину подякувати всім португальцям,
And I would
вашому
like to thank
народові,
you to all the
суспільстві,
Portuguese people,
вашим лідерам
to your
за
leaders,
те, що ви підтримуєте українців, що ви з нами, що ви стоїте
that you
з
are
Україною
supporting
і за
Ukrainians,
Україну.
that you are with
Дуже дякую.
Ukraine. Thank you for that.
Так, дякую дуже. Тепер найскладніше питання. Коли завершиться війна і де шлях до миру?
The question, when the war will end, what is the road to peace?
Сьогодні в світі прийнято вважати, що існує два шляхи до миру. Один шлях – це шлях перемоги на полі бою, і другий шлях – це умиротворити Кремль, Путіна, домовитися і отримати якусь зділку.
Today there are two schools of thoughts in the world as far as the answering your question. The first is a victory on the battlefield is the shortest road to peace. And the alternative view, appeasement, trade territory for peace and the war will end.
В багатьох європейських країнах починають трошки натякати, що у нас в зв'язку з війною є інфляція, складнощі соціальні, економічні, політичні. Давайте закінчимо цю війну мирним договором.
And we noticed also the other side of the coin in many European countries, many, not just Europeans. There are conversations now, talks, debates. This war lasts too long. We're already suffering in our societies, inflation, gas prices, fuel prices. So we need to finish it and let's make a peace deal.
Але я зараз дуже чітко хочу сказати, що не існує, на жаль, двох шляхів до миру. Існує лише один. Це перемога на полі бою, і я вам зараз поясню, чому.
There is no two roads to peace. There is just one road to peace. And this road to peace is a victory on the battlefield.
І чому це так?
And why?
Тому що мирний договір, який пропонує зараз агресор Україні, він складається з 4 частин, з 4
The peace
пунктів.
deal that Russian leadership proposed to us in the various forms consists basically of 4 building blocks.
Віддати завойовані території,
Give
і
up.
змиритися з цим, уступити і подякувати за те, що у нас частину території забрали. Але майте на увазі, те, що сьогодні в Україні тимчасово окупована, це по суті територія, яка дорівнює площі Португалії.
The first bill will give up territories that Russia already occupied, and that would be a pretext for the peace negotiations and the eventual peace. But take into account that the territory Russian Federation already occupied since the beginning of this war almost equals the territory of the Portugal.
Тому це для України і для всього вільного світу неприйнятно.
Because that's why it's not acceptable for Ukraine and I believe for the whole free world to trade territories, your land, for peace.
Друга вимога – це щоб Україна ніколи не стала членом НАТО і назавжди залишилась беззахисною.
The second condition or building block, never Ukraine should be part of the collective defense systems, for example, NATO.
І третя вимога – це скоротити українську армію до таких меж, щоб вона не здатна була захищати Україну. Це, по суті, роззброєння в односторонньому порядку, це, по суті, майбутня здача України. І на цьому наполягає Кремль.
Third condition put forward by the Kremlin is to demilitarize Ukraine, which amounts to the unilateral disarmament, no armed forces, basically.
І четверта – це гуманітарна. Ми мусимо відмовитись від своєї мови на користь російської, ми мусимо відмовитись від своєї історії, культури і іти шляхом русифікації.
And the first condition is basically give up our national civic identity, give up our historical roots, our language, and basically accept voluntarily Russification.
Кремль не збирається відмовлятись від цих умов, і тому це не угода про мир, це по суті капітуляція, яку хочуть зафіксувати з українською участю.
And the Kremlin insists in the various formats and the communications we're receiving, these four conditions are not negotiable. Therefore, we never ever agree to such conditions because in such form they amount to a capitulation.
Ніхто в Україні від президента до звичайної дитини ніколи на ці умови не погодиться.
Nobody in Ukraine, from the president to a child, never ever accept such conditions.
І хочу сказати вам, що це не дорога до миру, це дорога до продовження війни.
Therefore, it's not a road to peace, it's a road to the continuation of war.
І тому разом з 50 країн, які об'єдналися в Рамштайні для того, щоб допомогти Україні, ми обов'язково доб'ємося перемоги. І зараз українська армія в ці хвилини іде в контрнаступ на півдні України.
Therefore, together with more than 50 countries that are united now, what we called in Ukraine the Ramstein coalition, the gathering of the ministers of defense and countries in the Ramstein base, together to mount a credible counter-offensive. Currently, it's taking place in the south of Ukraine.
І тепер постає питання, коли буде мир? Затяжна війна, чи вона може закінчитись достатньо швидко?
And finally, what is more preferable, a protracted war, betting on time in favor of Ukraine, or a quickly finished war?
Я думаю, на це питання я зможу
I believe I have
відповісти
a chance to
наступним.
answer that later in the panel.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Yulia Tymoshenko, for those opening remarks. We will, of course, come back and elaborate a little bit more, but first of all, a round of applause. And you alluded to the support that you've seen here in Portugal and across Europe. I mean, the EU and Europe have been quite clear from the start whose side they were on. Mr. Nemrini, you're not just an interpreter here, you're also here because we want to hear from you as well. So, same question to you regarding the fact that are we now, do you think, in long war mode?
Yeah, it's not about distance, it's not about time. Because if you're talking about distance, Donetsk, I'm from Donetsk, eastern Ukraine. Donetsk, my hometown. And if you take distance from Lisbon to Donetsk, it's almost 5,000 kilometers. To Kiev, 4,000 kilometers from Lisbon. To Kherson, to south, is 4,500. So it looks like from Lisbon, it's far away. It's a war on the periphery. So it's will never ever come closer to us. And my message that there's a mistake, because many people thought in the similar way in 2008 when Russian Federation attacked Georgia and still occupying 25% of the Georgian territory. Many people thought the same way in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea and occupied a significant part of my homeland, Donbass. They thought that would be enough for Putin, because the only thing he cares really is Crimea. And if Crimea is negotiable, then he will not move further. Not the case. He is moving further. So therefore, answering your question, it's not about distance, not about time. It's about right conclusions and the right lessons to be learned. And there are two lessons, I believe, that are very viable. The first conclusion, the first lesson, the 24th of February brought a phenomena when the gray zone gone. There is no more gray zones in Europe. What is gray zones? Those countries in between. The diplomats at the time of the Cold War were playing which role is better for these countries in between. Bridges, buffer zones, or something else. But the very fact that Finland and Sweden, when the war has started, decided to join NATO and not willing to be anymore in the security vacuum in between is a very powerful lesson to be learned by others, and not just in Europe, but also in such regions like Indo-Pacific. And the second conclusion and the lesson to be made, what is the value of something that's called security guarantees? For Ukraine, it matters a lot, because in 1994, Ukraine gave up third largest nuclear arsenal in the world, larger than UK, France, and China combined, in exchange of joining the Non-Proliferation Treaty. The third largest nuclear arsenal consists of 2,000 strategic warheads, 176 ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, 44 strategic bombers, and 2,500 tactical nukes. All those were transferred to Russia and destroyed. And in exchange, Ukraine received security guarantees in the form of Budapest Memorandum, signed by the President of Russia Federation, Yeltsin at that time, President of the United States, Bill Clinton, and Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, John Major. But when the war has started, and Ukraine said, we have a security guarantees of the territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence. And one of the guarantors attacked Ukraine. So then the international institution and other guarantors were not able actually to deliver the promise. So this is a precedent not just about Ukraine. How you could dare to negotiate to ensure something serious with countries like Iran, North Korea, or others, when something given to country that were denuclearized voluntarily, that the promise has been broken and security guarantee proved to be woolly guarantees. So this the lessons. Unless we learn these lessons, not just Ukraine, but all others, I think we're doomed to repeat the same, but in a more horrible, ugly way sometime in the future.
Quite a wake-up call there, Mr. Nermini. And just regarding lessons being learned, looking back perhaps at 2014, could Europe have done more then, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think that we bear collective responsibility for what's going on in Ukraine today, for this open invasion that started on February 24th. I think that our collective reaction back in 2014 was slow. It wasn't strong enough. And in contrast to that, I think that the reaction that we saw after the February 24 open invasion, open war of Russia against Ukraine, one of the elements that President Putin had miscalculated was the speed and the depth of reaction of the European Union, of NATO, and of the global community collectively. Now, of course, the issue is whether that is going to stand. Looking at the situation currently in Ukraine, of course, short of an outright military victory, the only way to end a war is a diplomatic solution, for which right now I don't see incentives on either side, and especially not on part of President Putin, as I think that time is on his side. He has the means to wage a long war. The sanctions have hit the Russian economy. They have to be looked in combination with military, diplomatic, and other means. And he is preparing for a long war of attrition in Ukraine, this grinding war of incremental gains at a very high price, but also of attrition of our unity and of purpose and resolve in the West and in other parts of the world. Because with the soaring energy prices, with inflation, with the weaponization of food and energy, without any doubt, there will be dissatisfaction in our own societies. with what we're going to be facing this winter. So I think it's of utmost importance for governments to assuage the effects of the crisis in our respective societies, especially for the most vulnerable people in the population. But when I think back of my own experience, it was 23 years when the war broke out, and at the time when I would go to bed at night, and I would listen to detonations about 20 kilometers away from Zagreb. I was grateful for the warm bed that I could sleep in that night. However, we soon forget that experience. And for way too long in Europe, we have been lulled into this feeling that the peace will be there, that the security will be there. We have taken the peace for granted, especially the young generations who have not seen war and destruction. So I think that the main message that we should be sending today is for everyone to think of the situation that Ukrainians are actually losing lives and losing blood. And we should be able to lose some of the comfort that we have in our own lives, to appreciate and to protect the values. Even if you don't believe in liberal democracy, nevertheless, we do have to protect international law, state sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the right of every nation and individual to choose their own future. And my message to the young generation and to the purpose generation is we must not let bullies run the world.
Very well said. We must not let bullies rule the world. Alexander Kavkinski, I'd like to get your view now. And just on that issue of unity, we've seen unprecedented unity back in March by European member states and capitals all coming together, taking decisions at a speed we hadn't seen for years. But is the momentum still there?
Well, this is the next, let's say, so-called success of Putin. We were never so much united before, and because of this unprecedented aggression against Ukraine, we are united, and that is the first very important news value, and we have to continue this unity. And we have here a lot of young people, so please remember that Europe united is not only stronger, but is better. If Europe will be disintegrated, we have no chances in 21st century in these global processes which we can observe. We have a strong competitors, sometimes enemies. Russia is enemy. China is a strong competitor. Probably next month we'll see China as an enemy as well because of quite likely aggression against Taiwan. So the first message is united Europe is stronger, is better, and that is a good space for all of us and for you, young generation, as well. I'm afraid, of course, because, you know, life is life. And we know that the people, they have very limited patience. So I'm very much afraid about everything what will happen during winter time. Because energetic crisis is coming. We have no chances to avoid it. We'll have probably some blackouts of energy in some places. We will have inflation, high prices, etc., etc. And it's very important to understand in this difficult period that we are fighting together with Ukraine for the most important values like democracy, sovereignty, respect, human rights, dignity, etc. So, of course, Western Europe, but also Poland, my country, after 30 years of very positive, successful transformation, is more and more pro-consumption-oriented society. So for us, it's not easy to accept that the conditions of life will be worse or can be worse. But it's necessary to understand that that is such time, that is such period of the history when we have suffered because we are fighting for much more important values, for much more important things. And our generation, my generation, your generation, were never confronted with such challenge. A generation of my parents, of my grandparents, they were confronted each 10, 20 years with wars, with conflicts, with poverty, famine, etc., etc. So that is for us and all of us really difficult but very important challenge, and we have to pass this exam successfully, because that is important for our future. And last remark, as is Russia. I tell you, I participated in some discussions, and one of the elements of such controversy was, it's a Putin's war against Ukraine or it's Russia's war against Ukraine. Because it would be easier probably for all of us to say, well, that is a Putin's war. Because his obsession is to rebuild great Russia, to rebuild the empire, and of course to rebuild the empire he needs such big, great country as Ukraine, like Belarus and some Central Asian countries. It would be probably easier to understand that if we will change, or someday Putin will be changed in Kremlin, we'll have a better situation. We can open new chapter in the relations with Russia. But I tell you, knowing Russia quite well, and I read a lot of books. Today you had some hours before Anne Applebaum, and she told us that the liberal history of Russia, that is such period and maybe zero period, that never existed. Of course, we had some liberal ideas or leaders, but it never was successful. So, unfortunately, in my opinion, that is a problem, because that is Russia's war. That is very much connected with Russian understanding of the world, Russian understanding of position of Russia in this world. That is a lot of imperialistic sentiments. And Russia never decided to discuss openly inside this country the problem of the past, of the Tsarist time, of Soviet Union, etc. This idea of Russian greatness, of Russian territories, that is something what is unfortunately very deep in Russian mentality. Why I'm speaking about it? Because we have to be prepared that even in one day Putin will finish his presidency, and we'll have a next generation of leaders. The situation, especially concerning Ukraine, can be the same. Because for this great Russian idea of own country, of the role in the world, Ukraine is a crucial part. And because they want, Russia wants, with Putin or without Putin, or with some Putin successor, Russia wants to have full control over Ukraine. This conflict is for very, very long time. But we can win. We can win, and Yulia told you very important things. If we will support Ukraine, if we will deliver supply weaponry, if we will give strong financial support for Ukraine, seeing determination of Ukrainians, seeing how they are courageous, how they are skillful, how they use all these new weapons, it's a chance that in this fight between democracy and authoritarianism, Ukraine will help to all of us to win, and democracy will have a chance for the next decades. And that is one element, to fully support Ukraine. And second is, of course, our unity. Without unity of the West, I think about European Union and the United States, we have no chances to win in this global confrontation between democracy and authoritarian ideas.
And one way we've seen, round of applause there, thank you so much. And one way symbolically Europe and the European Union have been supporting Ukraine is by offering the promise of European Union membership, being told that Ukraine belongs in the European family. So my question to you, Yulia Timoshenko, do you believe this promise? Will the European Union deliver? And when do you see Ukraine as part of the European Union?
Ми не просто віримо в те, що Україна буде членом Європейського Союзу. Україна єдина в сучасній ситуації на Революції Гідності вийшла і поклала своє життя на Майдані Гідності за те, щоб бути частиною європейської цивілізації. Ми в 2014 році, у 2013 гинули за це наші діти, наші студенти і наші патріоти. Тому ми не просто вважаємо, що ми мусимо бути частиною об'єднаної Європи. Там наше історичне місце.
We not just believe in this. We proved with all our history, including the most recent, in the Euromaidan revolution of dignity on Maidan, when people were given their lives for the sake of what was called European dream. Not very many countries now, citizens of this country, could sacrifice their life for the sake of Europe and the European future. The same is now. Young Ukrainian men and women giving up their sacrificing their lives for the European future. And it's not something that Ukraine is moving to. It's coming back to, because always Europe from Lisbon to Luhansk is something that's very close to Ukraine. Ukraine is Europe. Therefore, the formal membership in the European Union is something that, of course, takes time. It depends on many factors. But it's not a question of belief. It's the question of belonging.
Нас Кремль зараз вбиває за те, що ми хочемо бути вільними і хочемо бути в Європі, в нашій родині.
And this is precisely why the Kremlin is so horribly attacking Ukraine, because it wants to cut, to ruin, to kill our European vocation.
Обличчя війни страшне.
The face of war is horrible, ugly.
1 вересня у нас зазвичай діти йдуть до школи.
On the 1st of September, as in many countries, the school year starts.
Більше 1000 дітей не змогли піти до школи, тому що вони або вбиті, або важко поранені. Сьогодні вбивають наших дітей.
But if you compare the 1st of September of this year and the 1st of September of the last year, already more than 1,000 of Ukrainian children were not able to go to school because they were killed.
Обличчя війни страшне. Тому що буквально декілька днів назад, якраз коли починалися навчання в школі, в Маріуполі, це Донецька область, бетоном залили в драматичному театрі сотні жінок і дітей, яких вбив Кремль. Це обличчя війни.
And most recently, to many of you, the name of the southern seaside town in Ukraine, Mariupol, is known. And a few days ago, several days ago, exactly before the beginning of the new school year, the Russian occupiers put a baton to asphalt on the place where the Ukrainian women and children who were in the shelter there were killed by the Russian bomb. They're just hiding their war crimes there.
І тому цю війну треба припиняти негайно.
Therefore, this war needs to be stopped urgently.
Не можна вести сьогодні дискусію про затяжну війну.
We cannot talk about, even we have no right, it's immoral to talk about the protracted war.
Українська армія стоїть дуже мужньо, дуже стійко і дуже професійно.
Armed forces, our soldiers, very courageous.
Але перемога дорівнює зброї, яку нам можуть поставити сьогодні вчасно, і зброї дуже ефективної.
Is the following: victory equals the amounts and the quality of the weapons supplied on a timely manner.
Деякі країни говорять, давайте не будемо дуже швидко поставляти зброю, тому що Україна мусить піти на мирні домовленості і швидко закінчити війну.
There are some voices in the West, no, not hurry up, don't supply this amount of weapons that the Ukraine requested, because if we will procrastinate, that Ukraine will be more willing to agree on the peace deal that Russia proposes.
Okay.
Але це не можна такого допустити. Треба закінчувати війну негайно. Зброя – це перемога. Україна готова дати бій і готова перемогти.
So we cannot accept again, as I already said, the more weapons, the quicker we finish this war, and the victory will be not just ours, but yours and all of us, European victory.
And I think everyone... And I think everyone in this room would be in agreement that that war has to stop as soon as possible. Yulia Tymoshenko, thank you so much for being with us here. Mr. Namaria, thank you so much as well for your interpretation and also for your insights. Kalinda Graba-Kitarovich, thank you so much as well for being with us. And Alexander Krafniewski, thank you so much. And thank you so much to our audience. Stay with me. Stay with me here on stage for just a minute because I have a little bit of breaking news here at Nova SBE, and I'd like for that intervention to invite Daniel Trasse, the Dean of Nova SBE, onto the stage because he'll be presenting a brand new scholarship that Nova SBE is announcing today. So thank you much, Daniel Trasse.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence. I know for Yulia and Higri, it's been very difficult to travel here, so it's been a huge effort, so thank you for being here. It's been very clear that this is effort from all of us, and Nova has decided in this context too, and I think you can put up the slides, to offer 2 scholarships under Yulia Tymoshenko's name to try to bring students, high school students from Ukraine to do their university with us and to share this audience in a few years and maybe also help build Ukraine for the future. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to the 4 of you, and I'm sorry that it was so short. I had so many more questions, our audience had so many questions, but you'll be around for the rest of the day, so hopefully we can talk more. Take care.
You.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, as we heard in that panel,